Far beneath the surface of the open ocean, where sunlight faded into a dim blue haze, the world moved with a quiet, ancient rhythm. The sea was a vast domain of shifting currents, drifting particles, and gentle pulses of life that traveled farther than any traveler on land could imagine. In this underwater world, creatures glided in silence, listening to the language of the water around them. And among them swam a great whale, immense in size yet calm in spirit, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for its massive body. The whale lived in a realm where distance meant nothing to sound. In this world, a single tone could travel farther than the eye could ever see. The whale knew this instinctively, for it had grown in these waters, felt the vibrations of tides, and heard the voices of oceans echoing across miles. Every creature had its way of surviving, and for the whale, its strength lay not in speed or stealth, but in the depth and reach of its voice. As the whale glided through deep, the ocean stretched endlessly around it, an entire universe of shifting blues. Tiny fish sparkled like scattered stars, diving in and out of shadows created by drifting kelp. Sunlight filtered to the surface in shimmering columns, illuminating drifting particles that danced like dust in a grand cathedral. Each movement, each wave, each faint distant rumble painted a picture of a world alive yet peaceful. The ocean was harsh to some, gentle to others, but always honest in its vastness. The whale's days were spent journeying across long distances, migrating with the seasons. There were times when the ocean felt warm and welcoming, full of life and abundant with food. There were times when the waters cooled, the currents deepened, and survival required patience and endurance. Yet always, the whale moved steadily, guided by an instinct older than generations. But what set this whale apart was not its size nor its strength, but the quiet power it carried within, a voice capable of reaching beyond the horizon. The whale's song was not a simple sound. It was deep and resonant, composed of vibrations that flowed through the water like threads of memory. Each note carried emotion, tracing stories of distant journeys, ancient migrations, and the pulse of the earth itself. The whale sang not to be heard in the moment, but to send meaning across the ocean, where it would one day reach another listener who needed to hear it. Some songs travel for miles, drifting through canyons, weaving through coral forests, and spiraling along underwater cliffs. Other creatures often wonder why the whale sang so often. Many animals survive by blending into the environment, conserving energy and avoiding attention. Yet the whale continued singing even when the ocean offered no response. It sang on days when storms churned the waves above. It sang when vast shadows moved overhead. It sang when the sun sank and darkness filled the water. It sang not because someone always listened, but because the song mattered. The whale understood that a voice carries farthest when spoken with truth, not expectation. In time, however, the whale faced the quiet challenge of isolation. The ocean was immense, and there were seasons when others of its kind were nowhere nearby. Some days passed into nights without a single answering song. Other creatures gathered in schools or herds, finding comfort in closeness, but the whale's path was often solitary. It traveled through regions where the water seemed empty except for the drifting echoes of its own voice. Yet still the whale sang. It understood that a voice in use grows weak, and a message unshared fades before it leaves the heart. The whale's journey brought it through waters where storms raged above. The surface churned violently as winds pushed waves into towering walls of white foam. Below, the turbulence stirred the deeper waters, sending cold currents spiraling downward. The whale felt the pull of the storm, but its powerful body adapted with each movement, conserving energy as it descended into quieter depths. Down here, far beneath the chaos, the world was still. Light barely reached as deep, and the silence seemed almost sacred. In that calm darkness, the whale raised its voice again. The song vibrated through the still water, rich and steady. It was a song of endurance, of resilience, of a creature that refused to be silenced by distance, isolation, or the passage of time. The sound traveled outward, moving steadily through the ocean's layers. Even when no answer returned, the whale's song continued, trusting the rhythm of the deep. Weeks passed, and the whale continued migrating. It moved through vast underwater plains where kelp forests swayed like fields of grass in a gentle breeze. It swam past rocky slopes dotted with shells and past towering coral structures that built themselves one tiny layer at a time. Everywhere it traveled, the whale carried its voice. Even in moments when the ocean felt too wide, the distances too great, and the silence too heavy, the whale relied on the simple truth that a voice shared with sincerity never disappears. It may drift, it may wander, but it will reach where it is meant to reach. As it traveled, the whale encountered moments of challenge. One day, an underwater landslide shook the seafloor, sending clouds of sediment into the water. Visibility dropped, and the whale had to rely not on its sight, but on instinct and awareness. Another day, powerful predators roamed the region, searching for prey. The whale, too large to be threatened directly, still moved with caution, sensing shifts in the water and adjusting its path. Yet through every difficulty, the whale continued to use its voice. The act of singing was not a display but a connection to memory, to purpose, to the deep wisdom of the ocean. And then, after months of traveling through waters that felt endlessly quiet, something changed. One day, while the whale drifted through a tranquil stretch of sea, a faint vibration trembled through the water. It was distant, so faint it could have been mistaken for a shifting current. But the whale paused, listening carefully. The vibration came again. A tone, then another, a familiar pattern of sound. It was a song, not its own, but the voice of another whale. Carried across miles of water, the whale turned toward the sound, feeling a warmth spread through its immense body. For the first time in a long while, there was an answer, a voice that understood the language of the deep, a voice that had listened, a voice that had traveled far to reach this moment. The whale responded with a gentle, powerful note, sending its own voice forward with renewed strength. The songs intertwined across the vast distance, weaving through currents and swirling through underwater valleys. Slowly, steadily, the two whales drew closer, following the whispers of each other's voices. Their songs echoed through the water, not as a call of longing, but as a celebration, a reminder that a voice spoken with honesty will always find its listener. When the two whales finally met, they swam together in calm harmony, their songs blending into a melody that resonated through the surrounding ocean. The whale felt the weight of solitude lift, replaced not by noise, but by connection. It realized that even when the sea had felt empty, its songs had been traveling, moving, reaching, and touching places it had never seen. With renewed purpose, the whale continued its journey, now accompanied by another. They sang as they traveled, their voices reaching far beyond their own paths. Their songs drifted into distant waters, reaching creatures who had never heard such deep, resonant tones before. Their voices became part of the ocean's ancient music, a reminder that what is spoken with sincerity, patience, and courage can travel farther than one can imagine. In the vast universe of water, the whale understood a simple truth. The voice carries not because it is loud, but because it is true. A message from the heart does not disappear. It moves through life, touching others long after it leaves the lips or the lungs of its creator. And so the whale continued singing, trusting the ocean to carry its voice wherever was needed. Its journey stretched onward, peaceful and purposeful. The waters shifted, the currents changed, and the seasons turned. But the whale's song remained a steady thread woven into the ever-moving rhythm of the sea. In time, the whale's song would travel farther than any creature could see. It would reach distant shores, cross vast underwater mountains, and echo through waters that the whale itself would never visit. But that did not matter. The whale did not sing for recognition. It sang because its voice was meant to be shared. Because every creature has something worth expressing. Because silence in the heart grows heavy when kept unspoken. And somewhere in another stretch of the ocean, a young whale beginning its own journey would hear that ancient, steady song and feel less alone. It would learn that a voice, when spoken with purpose, becomes a guide, a comfort, a legacy. The whale's song continued on, carried endlessly by the tides, proof that courage can travel farther than the eye can see.